What can possibly be said about this figure that hasn't been said time and time again? What spin can GI Joburg put on a character whose prominence in the GI Joe mythology has reached oversaturation? Maybe it all starts with a personal story. Version 1 Snake Eyes didn't exist to a boy growing up in the early 90s in South Africa. I had one surviving card back depicting version 2 in all its glory of about a 1-inch squared cross-cell image. Version 3 was a toy I had actual experience of, having received it as a Christmas present in 1990, only to have it disappear without a trace weeks later. So when a trip to a local corner cafe one Thursday night yielded this comic book, the mystery of Snake Eyes only deepened. It was entitled Red Eye to Miami, and in it, Snake Eyes and 2 other characters I'd had no awareness of had to use their wits to escape a war-torn South American nation and work together out of necessity to do so, even when it seemed that under any other circumstances they would be tearing each other apart. It was pretty compelling stuff. I had no backstory, but the seesawing trust and mistrust, cooperation and backstabbing had me captivated. Snake Eyes' presentation was simplified. At that point, to me it wasn't clear whether the artist was just unwilling to include all the details I associated with Snake Eyes, or that Snakes had lost all his uniform elements and equipment in the issues prior. But there was something very retro about the look and feel of this book with its bold inks and colours, and I really delighted in the unfamiliarity. And for a work of Larry Hama's, the focus is surprisingly tight on our 3 leads. There's a brief scene with the Joes, one scene and some change with Cobra, but the rest of the issue is spent entirely with Quinn, Snake, and Dr. Venom, and this is such a welcome choice. Issue 15 is truly one of my favourite tales of GI Joe. I guess the point I want to pull from this mini comics review is that I never stopped to consider that there was an earlier version of Snake Eyes than the 1985 version 2. I mean, how could there be? No sword, no knives across his chest or hand grenades on his triceps, no medieval visor. Was this the poor man's understated Snake Eyes? Well, in one sense, absolutely. The 11th carded figure in the first wave, the one famously squeezed past the bean counters as the bulk of it could be made from existing tooling and required no paint operations on it. While many Joe fans tell the tale of the Vamp and Clutch being their first, or single-carded Breaker bought alongside the Ram, or Short Fuse or Flash for their excellent accessories, in an initial lineup of beloved toys, this unassuming monotone figure would quickly become the most infamous. A good guy, in all black, with the word Snake in his codename in spite of the eternal foe being Cobra. It was a hotbed of contradiction and mystery only deepened by the file card.
No file name, no birthplace, nigh superhuman proficiencies in small arms and explosives, martial arts, Arctic survival, aquatics, and even traditional medicines. If this was intended to be an avatar for us, to insert ourselves into the adventure, we could not have picked a more determined vehicle. We would learn in time that Snake Eyes' dedication to being the best would have its strongest motivation in personal tragedy, loss, and the emptiness of his civilian life. As Scarlet puts it, what would he do? He had nobody left.
And in spite of the reused parts and no paint, the present details are excellent and very tasty. The texture on the frag grenade, the sheathed dagger, the unique thigh moldings indicating the explosives and pouches to hold whatever your imagination could cram in there. The head sculpt is perfection, with the vented mouth slits being my favorite element.
It occurred to me that while Snake Eyes is oversaturated in GI Joe, the note that gets really overplayed revolves around the presence of a sword. Think about it. Whenever Snake Eyes is involved in action, the sword inevitably finds a use. A sword. In a modern combat situation, you'd have to contrive your plot a fair bit to orchestrate that. Lugging a sword around purely to cross it with other swords is perhaps the most contrived bit of plotting ever. This figure is a stark reminder that the sword was never an element in Snake Eyes' initial presentation, and it's so refreshing to get back to that purity of concept.
Accessories are very lean. The Uzi, the eternal trademark, part of the DNA of this character makes its debut alongside him, and it's absurd how much detail was crammed into the gorgeously scale-accurate weapon. For my money, it's still the best for its really fine molding, the sharpness of its sights, the slenderness of its barrel. The mold was altered for the second version, but as far as I'm concerned, the earlier effort is the superior one.
Regrettably, I only have a later design of this mold, but even so, it is still an excellent accessory. I also don't have his second accessory.
The handbag. Explosive satchel. And while I'm thrilled that a second accessory was included, part of me wishes it was the more general accessory type, like Grunt's backpack, just in black. There's even comic art depicting this fantasy accessory, and it would make Snake Eyes' commander raids a little more believable, since at least with a backpack, you can pretend he brought rope, or a radio, or a disassembled sniper rifle. I believe the satchel can be awkward to pose with, and is a breakage risk, what with that thin plastic strap. It's also molded with a hollow in the back, which wouldn't bug me, but I fully anticipate giving him a Pursuit of Cobra Snake Eyes satchel, if anything, which is a solid mold.
And solidly molded too. Collecting this toy line is a constant evolution of tastes for me. Sometimes I'm all about the late 80s, as the forgotten era where the cartoons ran out and Child Steve ran in. Sometimes I just want that Sunbow Series 1 roster. Sometimes it's all about the guys I imprinted upon while first playing the Nintendo cartridge back in the day. Sometimes I only want to play with any given character's debut look. That's where my head is at with Snake Eyes at the moment. It was easy for a younger Steve to snub this figure as rudimentary. The head only turns left and right. There are no painted details. Half of them out there have no swivel to the arms. To answer my own question from earlier, was this the poor man's Snake Eyes with its sparse design and non-existent paint? Did this toy come across as underwhelming? No, I'd say the class and good taste exhibited by this early effort actually made the later versions look over-designed. Why does your commando need to heft 2 giant silver knives on his chest when sneaking into the Cobra base? Why does our ninja master need pouches on his ankles? When assembling your uniform, why would you sew straps and holsters and sheaths in any color other than black? And why, in the name of all that is good, do you need lips on your mask? Come at me, guys. I'm Team Goggles. For now. Man, this toy is great.